Welcome back to another video, Duelists, and today we are doing something a little bit different to our regular content. This time, instead of focusing on me, I did want to focus on some of our other duelists, especially our more higher tiered players. And our matchup today is Fiendsmith Tenpai versus Fiendsmith Ryzeal. And this is currently final round, both players are undefeated. Just waiting for our players to start their round. Before we kick off, if you do enjoy the content, please consider subscribing, as well as leaving a comment or a like. Anything helps out. Anyway, with that out of the way, we are proceeding with the die roll. It looks like the Tenpai player had won the die roll and is choosing to go first, which is a very weird thing to hear for a Tenpai player. But remember, he is also playing the Fiendsmith version, so there is some cases where they do go first. Looks like we're about to start the game with normal summon of Pydra. Pydra effect gets met with a Veiler, which does resolve, but Nick follows up with the effect of Fiendsmith Tract, adding the Engraver, assuming that he has the Luri in hand already. Which he does indeed already have in hand, so he decides to discard that, so he can make use of Luri's effect to come back from grave, only to go immediately back to the graveyard because he's being used as Link 1 material for Requiem. And then Requiem will go into the Lacrima. I guess the play here is to set up Caesar as well as having the Lacrima in grave just to get rid of some of the problematic Ryzeal cards on the following turn. The only thing is I think he does forget about Necroquip Princess's effect, which does mean that he doesn't get that additional draw from using the engraver that was already in hand. And with how Tenpai already has its deck laid out, getting to see the next card of your deck is always such an advantage. Even if it was just follow up for the next turn, it still probably would have landed him in a better position. So we do see the Necroquip Princess being made and then immediately being used as material for the Caesar, and Nick passes turn to Jackson. Kicking off Jackson's turn, he does start off with Bonfire to see if the opponent had Ash Blossom in hand, so he fetches the Ice Ryzeal. He then follows that up by activating Infinite Impermanence, targeting the Caesar. And after that, he goes for the normal summon of Ice to get him the X, and then X will search him a sword. Now, interestingly enough, he doesn't go straight for the Moon or Exciton play. He does go straight into Abyss Dweller to avoid the Lacrima plays, which is a risky move because it does play a bit more heavily into the Nibiru, but I guess he has enough gas in hand where it doesn't really matter if he gets Nibiru'd early. So as we can see, he does activate the effect of Abyss Dweller, sending off the X, and then following that up, he will activate Fiendsmith Tract to get himself Luri and discard Luri, specialing it, going into Requiem, and Requiem will go into the Lacrima, which will then ditch the Engraver. He does use Requiem's effect to attach to Lacrima, going into Necroquip Princess from here. And we do see the Engraver effect in hand being ditched to get another Tract, but also enabling the effect of Necroquip Princess to draw an additional card. Unfortunately, we don't get to see what the card is, but after drawing one, Jackson does go for the effect of Engraver Engrave to shuffle back the Luri to special summon itself, and unfortunately it does get met with a Nibiru. Also a quick note, Nick should have changed the Lacrima to special summon itself so he can at least set up the trap from deck. But in saying that, Nick is still learning the Fiendsmith portion of his deck, so we can't fault him too hard on that. So after being nibbed, Jackson does continue his Ryzeal plays by going into X and Sword, which then get made into the Duo Drive, attaching the Ice, and then uses Duo Drive's Detach effect, detaching the Sword and X to search him a Cross and a Node. So at this point he activates Cross because Duo Drive still has a material so he can go for a monster negate if he gets interrupted from here. He then goes for the special summon of Node, then Node pitches the extra bonfire in hand for the revive of Sword Ryzeal, then goes into Detonator. Detonator attaches the twins of the Eclipse that he sent off X'd, and then he swings into the Nibiru for 200 points of damage, then proceeds to pass turn. Nick does start out his turn by activating Metal Tronus, choosing to banish the Detonator, since he specialed his own Detonator from the extra deck, although he is still looking at a negate from Cross, as well as Jackson's own Lacrima that's in Graveyard. So we do see Nick weighing up his options by checking what's in grave. After checking the graveyard, Nick does go for the normal summon of Pydra and attempts to activate its effect to search him as Sengen summoning. However, it does get met immediately with the cross, detaching from Duo Drive and negating the Pydra's effect. And on resolution, Jackson does use the effect of Lacrima to special the Requiem, and then Requiem will special the Lacrima. Lacrima will send the Paradise Trap, just setting up for any further plays. Because from here, I guess you do just wait for the sequence to be made before you use the Fiendsmith in Paradise, so that way your opponent can't get into Desiree, and by that point they would have burnt through too much material to go into Agnum Day. So from here, Nick does use the effect of Engraver, but he messed up the sequence of which he wanted to do things, so he is just fixing up how he's choosing to do it. So he shuffles back the Requiem using the Engraver's effect, then links off the Engraver for the Requiem, and then Requiem will use its effect to go into another Engraver. Do note that the Pydra wasn't supposed to be in Graveyard, it's just how he would have sequenced it if he didn't fix it up beforehand. And this is pretty much allowing him to go into a sequence with enough link material to attach to a Desiree. However, we will see here he will summon it into the sequence and then immediately get met with the Paradise, sending the Desiree, and then Desiree sending the sequence, which will leave no room for Nick to recover, so he decides to move on to game 2. Alrighty, starting off game 2, we do have Nick taking first again, which is really interesting again because it's a flip of a coin post side whether your Tenpai opponent will choose to go first or second, now that they're using the Fiendsmith as a supportive package. So you really have to be careful on which way you have to side. Do you side for going first or second, or do you side for potentially both? But yeah, I thought that was pretty unique. So we are starting the turn off by Jackson using the effect of Perilia before anything happens, which does resolve, and Nick normal summons the Pydra, Jackson gets the draw, and then Pydra will get the Sengen summoning, which he does activate, fetching him the Genroku, discarding the second Pydra from hand. Nick does feed into the Perilia by using the Genroku's effect to special itself, and then uses the Genroku and Pydra as link material for Hieratic Spheres, and then passes turn. Also, I do want to apologize here for the camera angle changing a little bit. I think the tripod got knocked about a little bit, so if the camera angle does look a little bit off here, that is the reason. Alrighty, starting off Jackson's turn, he does activate the effect of Fuel Loss, just to get that additional draw if Nick does choose to activate the effect of Hieratic Spheres. Fuel Loss does resolve here, so Jackson's next play will be to activate Fiendsmith Tract, netting him the Engraver. It looks like both of our players have been blessed by the Luri in opening hand this game. So after Jackson nets the Engraver, he does get met with a Droll and Mockbird, locking Jackson out from getting the Necroquip additional draw as well as the Engraver effect to get another tract. And we don't see it until the end of the game, but Jackson does have Bonfire in hand, so he is also missing out on the Ryzeal plays. So moving on, Jackson does link off into Requiem using the Fiendsmith Lurie. And then he uses the effect of Duelist Worm, banishing his own Lurie in order to special summon itself. He then proceeds to use the effect of Requiem to get into the Lacrima, and then uses Lacrima's effect to dump the Engraver. After that, Jackson does use the Lacrima and the Duelist Worm as synchro material for Chaos Angel. He then uses Chaos Angels on summon effect to banish the Sengen summoning, and then chains Duelist Worm's effect to send the Hieratic Spheres. Nick does go for the Chain Link 3 here, using the Hieratic Spheres to bounce the Sengen summoning and to special summon Fardra from deck, meaning that the Chaos Angel and Duelist Worm both lose their targets. And on a new chain, Fardra will activate its effect to revive the Genroku. And after that, Jackson is free to continue playing, which he does start off by activating the effect of Engraver, shuffling back the Lacrima. Before proceeding here, Jackson does ask Nick if Fardra had the Battle Protection effect, in which case it does. So from here, Jackson does use the effect of Requiem to attach to Engraver, and uses Engraver's effect to send the Fardra to grave. After Jackson sends the Fardra, he does tribute summon into another Engraver by using the Chaos Angel as tribute material. After Jackson summons the Engraver, he does go into a Caesar, just to disrupt any special summoning effects that Nick may activate on the following turn. We do see Jackson thinking here, seeing if he wants to make any additional plays before he goes into battle phase and attacks over the Genroku, and then he proceeds to pass turn back to Nick. We do see Nick weighing up his options here before he commits to his first play, but he does eventually activate the effect of Sengen summoning, which will get him into another Pydra, by also discarding the Fiendsmith in Paradise that was already in hand, which I believe he did draw for turn. We do see the Pydra getting normal summoned here and activating the effect to fetch Nick the Sengen Kaiman. And after that, Nick flips the face down Metal Tronus, which then targets the Caesar. Seeing no ways to recover, Jackson does decide to scoop here, meaning that we will go to game 3. Okay, here we are for the all-important final round. We have Jackson deciding to take first, which is kind of dangerous when you're going up against a Tenpai player, but Jackson probably figures it's better for him to go first in this instance. So kicking off his turn, Jackson does activate the effect of Bonfire to fetch him an ice. Just in case he gets drolled here, he can still go into the Fiendsmith plays, or he can just end on the detonator from here. However, it does look like Nick did not open the droll. However, he did activate fuel loss on the summon of ice, to which Jackson responds with Ash Blossom. Using Ice's on summon effect, he does special summon X, which X then fetches the sword. Without fearing any of the Lacrima and Grave effects, Jackson does immediately go into the Moon line to get into the Fiendsmith plays by going into the Requiem, and then Requiem will go and fetch him the Lacrima. Lacrima will dump the Engraver. It does look like Jackson's going straight into the Caesar line to protect against any potential nib, just so he can freely go into any of his remaining Ryzeal players. So we do see the Caesar hit the board as well as Lacrima set up in the graveyard, so Jackson will go immediately into Sword Ryzeal, which will search him another ice. Jackson will use X effect, sending the twins to the graveyard in order to special summon the X. After that, he will go into Duo Drive. Duo Drive will attach the additional X that was in grave, and then Jackson will activate Duo Drive's effect, detaching to search for Cross and Node. After that, Jackson will go ahead and activate Cross to protect from any other monster interruptions, and then he'll go for the special summon of Node using Node's effect, pitching the Tract to special summon the Ice. Interestingly enough, he doesn't go for the Detonator here, instead he goes for the Dweller. After summoning Dweller, Jackson uses the effect of Cross, shuffling the Sword and X to draw one. He does draw into easily the best top deckable card here, which is Talents, which he does activate immediately to look at Nick's hand. Nick does reveal that he has a Genroku, Fardra, Pydra, and Duster. Jackson does choose to shuffle back the Pydra. And after that, Jackson does pass turn back to Nick. Unfortunately, Nick does draw into a Sangan Kaiman, which won't do anything for him, so he concedes the game. I think that Jackson goes home with that sweet 4-0 record. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode of Local Replays. I figured it was a nice easy video to do in between some of my bigger videos, so that way I can still post semi-consistently. And if you did enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like and a subscribe. Also feel free to leave some comments. It does help out with the algorithm, but even if not, your viewership is always more than enough for me. But that's enough from me. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. That's game.